It's all for you!
Stop! Stop! I didn't mean to cause the bodies and you only move the headstones! You only move the headstones!
Did you ever think when the hearse rolls by that someday you are going to die?
We here at With the Dead of the Night podcast are excited to announce our partnership with Psycho Soaps. Check out their Instagram page at Psycho Soaps or check out their Etsy page at www.etsy.com/shop/psychosoaps to check out all kinds of horror-themed soaps and more. Brilliant products out there.
Meek is my baby!
Mr. Lamb, may I talk to you a moment alone, sir? I've always found it best to give my bill at this time. It helps take your mind off your bereavement. Grief therapy, as we call it in the industry.
$1,250.
Well, it's not our best funeral, but
$1,250.
See, you've forgotten your grief already.
You advertised $144.98, not $1,250.
But, Mr. Lamb, you don't expect to get a funeral like that for nothing. Why, the silk in that box is worth at least $144. And then there's the hearse, and then there's the flowers. Now, the flowers are a big item, and then the...
I won't pay any $1,250.
Oh, yes, you will, sir. You signed a contract. Or at least your wife did. Didn't you, Mrs. Lamb?
You're both horrible to talk about money at a time like this.
I earned my money, Mrs. Lamb. That girl of yours had her legs chopped off. How would you like to have to sew plastic legs on a cold corpse? Of course, I could have skipped the legs and given her a junior-length coffin. That would have been more economical, wouldn't it? And her throat. If you could have seen her throat. You'll pay.
Hey, welcome back to With the Dead of the Night podcast. I'm Rigay Mortis, and it is the third Friday of the month, which means me and Boris are going to go way, way, way back into the 60s and 70s era of horror. So go ahead and grab yourself a spoon, a fork, and a doggy bag, because it's time for seconds over here at the Grindhouse Diner from Hell. And for our second film of the series, we are covering The Undertaker and His Pals. Go ahead and keep the facts, Boris.
Guys and ghouls, it's Boris Lagosa here to give you my facts on The Undertaker and His Pals, the 1966 horror comedy, dark comedy, exploitation, grindhouse film. This film stars Maureen Ott as Friday and James Westmoreland as Henry Glass. I apologize once again for this week for not having box office data. It seems like the last couple of films we reviewed, it was very scarce on the box office data. This movie was directed by T.L.P. Swicegood. Tell me that's not a fake name, I don't know, but that's the name that I got as director. So, before I begin, I would like to also say that on the midst of this COVID-19 outbreak, I would like to thank the essential workers again, the people working at grocery stores, and everybody out there to try and make life still revolve, even though we're dealing with this crisis. And we wish our elderly and everybody to get well and stay safe during this crisis. Thank you. Back to business here. What better way to throw in the perfect mix of sexy women, dark humor, and witty horror tropes in this comedy satire directed by T.L.P. Swicegood? The Undertaker and his pals in 1966 start off as a motorcycle gang breaks into an attractive woman's house to kill her and cut off her leg. What I found funny about the just way beginning of this film was this film was made in 1966, but I must say that watching this film before I go into the main key moments that happen in this film, I do think this movie was fun in itself, and you'll see why here coming. During this young lady's wake, you then see her parents as they're grieving and stricken of what had just occurred. They meet the Undertaker, where he discusses pricing. Yeah, I know, a funeral, right? Last place you want to be discussing pricing. Usually a professional would handle this in a different way. He's saying it's a good deal. The price quote the Undertaker gives the family member was apparently like $168. It ended up being like $3,000, and I can imagine $3,000 in 1966 is an absurd amount of fucking money. The Undertaker gives the grieving couple this completely ridiculous, dishonest price than what the offer originally was. You get this long-ass receipt and this line with them calling him crazy, which you'll find out he is. You're introduced in this film early to Harry Glass and his assistant Friday. These two characters I enjoyed. These were the main protagonists. I enjoyed every character in this film before I go on. But, as I lay out my facts about this, I'll tell you each reason why I enjoy them. They stop at the local town restaurant, which I'll explain then. I thought it was really cool in this film how each killing, pretty much the main concept of this film was the Undertaker and his pals is about this Undertaker trying to make a profit off of body snatching, murder. Pretty much the scraps were given to the restaurant where they made their food. The restaurant, the bikers, the Undertaker were all in cahoots. And I thought it was funny how when they stopped at the town restaurant, they had a special called Leg of Lamb, and that was the name of the first victim, which was, I believe, Sally Lamb. So, which immediately Harry knows that it's not, really Leg of Lamb. So they're introduced to the restaurant owners, which very weird from the start, because I think the only thing they served in that restaurant was the special, which the owner refers as special as leg of lamb, which is leg from the character. You will then find out in this film that Harry is obviously trying to get to the truth. When you find out the motorcycle gang and restaurant people work for the Undertaker, this was figured out, early in the film. This film was a straight-in-your-face film, which, you didn't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out what the hell was going on from the beginning. Unfortunately, Friday is murdered. You will see that she's replaced by her cousin, I believe, by the name of Thursday. Might I add, every single woman in this film, going to very little characters to the bigger characters. Oh my God, every woman was hot in this film. That's what I enjoyed too. Obviously, 60s and 70s had a lot of good hot women in their horror films that Rig and I always allude to in each episode. The restaurant uses legs. They actually killed a person and made him into chicken, which was, I believe they put on the special chicken of fried or something like that. You also saw a person, I thought this part was funny. They grinded a person up into hamburger meat, and he ran out of room on the chalkboard and wrote Hamburg and then put a dash and then put underneath. There's a lot of different elements in this film that was witty and it was funny, and it was, it pretty much started these horror trope type films in the mid 60s. I would like to get myself a hold of more films like this one. So the wits and the fun don't end there. As they use the meat, you'll see once Thursday steps in the picture, the wits and the fun just keep going as the Undertaker does get his. It's kind of in a funny way. You had this scene where later on in the film, the climax of where the truck comes in, hits the one gang member after the other gang member earlier on in the film, he fucks up. They boil him in acid, and there's so many different things, elements of gore. I mean, this film was actually pretty gory for its time. I had a lot of fun watching it. Not necessarily for the gore, it was more for the wits and the funny. You can do a good horror movie and a fun film like this without all the gore, which you will see here if you haven't seen this film yet. And Rig will get more into detail too about it in his piece. The Undertaker does get his after the whole car scene with Friday, Harry, and the two remaining members of the motorcycle gang. The wits and fun hit the climax as the Undertaker gets impaled in the head near the film's end. The gang is taken out by the detectives. This was a pretty straightforward story for the most part. This story was very. I quite frankly thought this movie was very well done. I thought that it's a shame that these characters weren't in other horror, witty movies like this, because it seems like a lot of these in the 70s, especially in the exploitation films, you had a lot of same. In Grindhouse, it didn't have to be horror. It was Grindhouse films in general. You had same characters like Jim Brown, Pam Grier, Richard Roundtree. You know, you had people doing those certain films, and the research I did on these people starring in this film was they weren't in much movies after this, especially the man who played The Undertaker. Maureen Odd, who played Friday, she was in a couple other films, but a lot of these guys weren't in a lot of movies after this. But I do think that the fun and games in this film was completely innocent, all of innocence, and I thought it was great. I also did enjoy The Undertaker. I mean, his character was funny, witty. He was stupid at times. I mean, especially the way he died towards the end of the film. The gang, the guy who ran the restaurant, I mean, he was kind of funny. I mean, with his wittiness, with the hamburger, the fried chicken, you know, there were about 6 deaths in this film that occurred. And, you know, for 1966, I mean, this movie kind of, you know, was what Grindhouse originated. Your exploitation horror films. This was more dark comedy than anything. I can't imagine. I would like to take a time machine back to this time period because I would like to see what the thoughts are of everyday people watching this film in 1966, seeing what their thoughts were. I'd like to be on a fly on a wall and see them in a theater. I believe this movie debuted in Birmingham, Alabama at a theater because it was banned in a lot of theaters during its time period for the content and the dark comedy which ensued. Because back then maybe people didn't take it as a dark comedy; they took it as like a disrespect towards the dead, if you will. But it certainly was not. This movie was done in all in good fun. And I can't wait to hear Rig's side of the story on this. This here is why Rig and I started doing this Grindhouse special every month. This whole concept here gives horror fans out there to open their minds a little more and dig into this type of genre of the horror regime, if you will. But this film was fun for me. Each death of this horror film was like name by name, as for example, Special, the restaurant, or it was. And the closing credits were actually pretty funny too. It was like I said, this movie was all in good fun. It was a horror movie, but more of a dark comedy. But I had a lot of fun watching it, and I'd like to see Rig's side of it. Rig?
All right, my thoughts. All right, first things first. I didn't really think this was going to be a horror comedy. When it first came on, you see the opening scene where there's like this motorcycle gang, and it's just, you know, of course, it's like the 60s and 70s. Every woman is hot as shit and completely stacked. You see this woman sitting in her living room, and all of a sudden, these 3 bikers come in, and it's like a scene where like she's like definitely like she's trying to run away or whatever, and then it's in black and white at the beginning of the movie, and then soon as the first biker grabs and stabs her, it goes to color, and I'm like, man, this movie's like, this is gonna be dark. I didn't realize it's gonna be so dark, and then as soon as you see like it turn the light, and all of a sudden you see the picture on the wall. It's like a portrait, I guess, of like a boyfriend who's in the Navy, and all of a sudden his like face changed in the frame, and I was like, what the fuck was that? And all of a sudden you see it happen again, like she gets stabbed again. You see his face change again, like he's in shock. And I was like, okay, so this is definitely going to be like a goofy horror comedy, and of course that's what it was. I really liked this movie, man. It was great. It was like there was like that first scene with the stabbing, which is really really fucked up at first, and then of course you see like the pictures and makes it laugh. I was like, and then it goes right back to that scene in the funeral with the mother, but where she's like crying. I'm like, oh man, like, is this a horror comedy? Is this not? Like, what was the point of the pictures if it's supposed to be like this dark? Like, what? Why? Why would they put that picture, smiling, the faces in the picture frame, changing back and forth, and then if not, then why is it immediately back to like horrific? This mother's like crying for her baby, but then of course they show the lady, the girl in the casket, and her eyes are open, and he's like, oh, and the Undertaker's sitting there, he's like, oh look, she looks so wonderful. I painted her myself, and I'm like, oh god, this is gonna be like a really fucked up scene, and but right before that, one of my favorite parts about this movie is when the credits or when the opening title of the movie comes on. It's the Hearst song, which is it's like really old, children's like creepy. It's like a really grotesque song, but was made for like kids. But I remember first hearing it when I was a kid in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark by Alvin Schwartz. So I remember hearing that as a kid, and like that's honestly probably one of the early things, that and like Goosebumps, that got me into horror. So when I heard that, I was like, oh man, it's like pure nostalgia right there. So they got me pumped up, and I was like, this is gonna be a good film. So back to my horrific beginning of this funeral, and then immediately after, this woman is like sobbing, like, oh, my baby, she never should have went to the city. Oh, my baby, she never should have left her mommy. I'm like, oh man, this is fucking, I hate funeral scenes in the movies. It's so dark. And all of a sudden he comes over and he's like, brings the dad. He's like, let me speak to you, sir, and brings her off to the side. And he immediately starts telling, like, what Boris said. He immediately starts talking about the bill. I was like, oh, this will keep you off. This will get you off. This will get your mind off things, off your grieving. And of course, he starts to freak out. $1,200. He starts to freak out, and it's like really fucked up. Is he's like, it's like, oh, do you have any idea how hard it was to sew these legs back onto her body? She had her legs cut off, and the father passes out. And then he's just like, I could have saved you some money and gave you a junior length coffin. That could have been more economical, easier for you guys. So that scene was like really fucked up. And of course, like, she comes over and starts screaming. And then and he's also like, beginning of the scene when they first come in, he like plays their own music during the funeral. And that was really fucked up too, but that was funny. But it kind of goes from there. So I kind of thought, like, my thought process was going to be, okay, so you have his Undertaker is really fucked up, and I guess his merciful gang is like maybe possibly working for him, and I didn't realize, you find out a little bit down the road a little bit that he actually is in the gang, the merciful gang, and he's pretty much the leader, because he doesn't seem like he'd be a leader of a merciful gang at all, but that changes. So, of course, you go later on, you meet this guy, Harry. And I don't even know, like, there's a lot of things in this movie it's a little bit of a flaw. Like, there's a couple scenes that just don't make sense. Like, I thought they made it tried a little too hard. But then there's some of them just, like, some of the scenes are just pure gold, pure horror, pure comedy, and it's, like, the whole skateboard scene, the skateboard scene, or he, like, steps on a skateboard, he, like, ridiculously rides out into the street. And this dude, he gets beat up, and it's just like, there's a couple scenes that like, doesn't make any sense. And there's a scene at the end where he like the Undertaker's randomly just throwing paint all over the place. And he's like, I've made a mess of things. I was like, what the fuck was that even in there for? Like, was it filler? You don't need filler. This movie's got enough gems in it. But like I said, like, as the movie goes on, you meet this guy Harry, and Harry's dumb as a fucking brick, and he's constantly like after all these broads that work for him, and like always like total ladies man, But I'm not even sure if he works for a law firm or what the fuck he's doing. You know, maybe I missed that part. But he constantly has like these hot ass assistants that keep on coming and talking to him. So of course, the first girl's Lamb, and then his assistant is her name's Poultry. And then of course she takes her out. She asks him to go out on a date. They go on a date, and they get to this diner, which you know soon find out later that the two guys that work at the diner are part of the motorcycle gang. And they're, you know, they have this huge scheme, like Boris, you just heard Boris talk about, where they have this huge scheme where they're, you know, killing. I'm not sure if they're like, if originally if it was, they're not organized at all. I think originally they're just trying to pick out women that had like names that seem like food, like lamb, poultry. But then it kind of goes, it starts off that way and then kind of completely goes a different way. And because they just start to kill pretty much everybody who steps in their way. They kind of go on like a spree. They start off as like organized crime and then kind of go on a killing spree because they're just nuts and they can't control themselves. So, of course, he takes Poultry on a date and then they go and they kill Poultry. And at first there's like lamb chops or leg of lamb, but then there's breasts of chicken, which is Mrs. Poultry and her big ass titties she's got. So then, I don't even remember what happened. I suppose it's like a delivery scene where this delivery guy and this black guy shows up and they kill him. And he's like, "Oh, I guess we're putting dark meat on the menu." It's a lot of just like little fucked up, like, you know, jokes like that. Of course, you probably couldn't do that these days because you get in trouble or sued or whatever. But then there's like, it kind of goes on from there where there's the scene where the one guy who I honestly thought was the leader, he fucks up and they just boil his ass alive. Like they have this big, like, you know, back this like big giant, I guess it's like a liquid fryer or just like liquid, I forget what the hell it is. Just like they just boil his ass to death. And while he's screaming, he says to him, he's like, "You could wake the neighbors. Quit being a bad sport about this." They're just like, you know, completely crazy. And then one guy, he's like the butcher, and he grinds everyone up, and he grinds up this woman, Friday, who's completely stacked like every other woman in this movie. It's funny because like the past two, like I actually have a like when we first came up with this idea of like, all right, let's do like grindhouse, you know, era films, the 60s and 70s, like, because there was a lot of fucked up shit, and a lot of these movies are kind of like brushed on, like you don't really get a whole lot of the shine they deserve. It's like, so this is like kind of like to us, it's just like bringing, like, you know what, like let's dig deep, let's find some like forgotten films and bring them to light because they're good, you know. And there's a lot of like really dark fucked up shit that was filmed in the 70s, you know, like 70s was like a weird era for everything. So there's a lot of really dark, like for some reason there's a lot of like cannibalism in the 70s. There's a lot of Satanism in the 70s. That was like a huge thing. That was like, I guess it was just like whatever was dark. And unfortunately, there's like a lot of like rape in movies in the 70s, even like in porn in the 70s. There was like just this weird like I don't understand, like the 70s is just everyone was just going. It was like after the 60s, I guess, psychedelic 60s. So everyone was kind of like coming down, but they weren't ready to come down yet. So they're like, oh, let's go way out in left field here, and we'll put some really violent, extra violent shit in there. But back to my thing. Like there's some like definitely like some pretty horrific, like, you know, and gory scenes in here. Like when they grind up Friday and they make her into burger meat, and then there's a scene where like I can't remember. I think they go, like I said, they just randomly start killing people. They killed the delivery man. Like they didn't need to. He didn't see anything he wasn't supposed to. They just killed him. And then they killed their friend. I can't remember if he messed up or what it was, but they just boiled his ass to death. Like you're just like, you know, we're just gonna go out swinging, I guess. So then they go into like this sauna, and there's so many scenes in this movie. I'm like, all right, finally, you know, you get all these hot girls. Can you just show a little bit of TNA? But they don't. But they go into this, they go into like this steam room, and they get this lady, and like they beat her to death with a chain. And it's like, damn, it's like pretty brutal. It's just like, you know, she's like screaming, like you're just like, did you see the little chunks coming off? And then, but then they, of course, they just, you know, that's all they do. They just kill all these people. And then they kind of go back and like, it's like randomly you have this, back and forth like you have the Undertaker and his pals, the bike gang, they're going, they're killing, and then you have they're kind of slowly following Harry and all his girls he's with. And I'm not sure they have no connection at all. There's a scene in the beginning where he like beats up the Undertaker, but there's nothing really. I mean, I guess that might be what his he starts to choose him as almost being like a victim. But there's just like so many scenes in the movie that don't make any sense. Like there's another scene where like they just like Friday gets killed, and I can't remember if it was actually the same actress or something that looks just like her, but supposedly she's the sister, and she comes back and she becomes the assistant to Harry, and her name is Thursday, and they got really creative with the names in this movie, and then they start like actually like dating or whatever, and they go somewhere and they go for this ride on this go on this car ride, and then they have this like there's this he pulls over there. He's like, "Oh, I ran out of gas. I guess I'll hitch a ride with this random guy and leave you by yourself." I don't know why he would leave this woman, especially after like everyone he's talking to is getting brutally murdered and put in served at a restaurant as food. But for some reason he thinks it's a good idea to go ahead and leave her by herself on the side of a desert road. So, sure enough, he makes it back in just in time, and there's this chase scene with the biker gang comes, and they get into this. And it's just like it's seriously like 5 minutes long of seeing the exact same scene where they come around the corner, the bike comes around the corner, they go around the corner, the bike comes around the corner. Like it's this ridiculous scene. And of course, this big ass truck comes around the corner and kills the one biker. So then left at the very end, the only one left is the Undertaker. So they just go, of course they have this guy gets killed and they're almost murdered by this horrific bike gang that's killing and force everyone to be cannibals. And they just nonchalantly just go back to the office and sit down, kind of chill for a minute. And then all of a sudden, you see the Undertaker, and then there's an explosion in the hallway. Like he sets off a bomb, and there's this there's an explosion which makes zero sense. I don't know why he calls it an explosion, but I'm not sure if like according to the one guy, I guess Harry got killed. They don't ever show Harry get killed or him getting blown up. He's literally in the room. There's an explosion, and she walks out in the hallway, and you don't ever see Harry again. And it doesn't make any sense. Like, okay, why was the explosion a distraction? Is Harry blown up in an explosion? Because he was literally just standing right there and you didn't see him get blown up. But then, excuse me, I swear it's not the coronavirus. And then there's a scene when she kind of runs out into the hallway for Thursday, not Friday, even though it looks just like Friday. And there's a scene where she just randomly walks out into the roof and she's getting chased by the Undertaker. And there's a scene where he dives after her. And they're running through the hall, running through the stairway, which is ridiculous music playing, and then they get up to the roof, and he dives for her, and he flies off, and then like before you see him dive off, you see that they're probably like on like the 6th or 7th story, like they're way the fuck up there. And you see his ass go flying off the side, and she just kind of nonchalantly says, okay, and starts walking back towards the stairs. She goes back to the office. And not even thinking, like, should I call the cops? This guy just tried to kill me. He just killed my boyfriend, blew his ass up to smithereens, I guess. And then tried to chase me with a knife and kill me. And randomly, I couldn't even explain to you how. He doesn't even get hurt. But the Undertaker supposedly falls at least 4 to 5 of the stories, maybe 6 stories, and I guess he catches the side, unless he hits the ground and climbs up to the 2nd floor. So you see him climbing up to the thing. Next thing you know, he's hiding in a closet, and he's getting ready to kill her and this other guy that works at the law firm or whatever the fuck they're at. And while he's just like, oh, crazy about Harry, don't make him like Harry anymore. I guess just like nonchalantly, this guy's got blown up, and they're just like not calling the cops. Just randomly having a conversation in the office like nothing ever happened. And he has a thing. He's like, oh, we're going to have to stick it to him. And he takes his pin and he sticks it into the door, and it pierces right through the head of the Undertaker. And then he just dies. And that's it. And of course, like the credits start to roll, and while the credits rolling, they go back into the movie and show everyone who was dead at their death scene, like kind of like copying up, like shows like Lamb, the girl Lamb, at the beginning, and shows her getting out of the casket. Shows Undertaker, like his casket is like just like a wooden box. It's a lot of funny shit in it. So it's definitely worth checking out, and I definitely highly suggest watching it. And these are a lot of fun. Like a couple of these movies we watched have been kind of they kind of fucked up, but then some of them are going to be, funny like this one, something we can laugh at. But yeah, like I love this era in horror, because you don't know, this is early in horror comedy, and this was early in a lot of horror films. Like you kind of just like almost coming right out of black and white, you're just getting into color. So, horror in color was a whole new ball game there. Before that you just had like the traditional like classic horrors, and like this is like early. This is like the beginning of like Hammer films and all this other epic movies and series of movies that came out. So yeah, so we're really gonna enjoy doing this series. So, well, guys, I'm Reggae Mortis, and this is with Dead and Light Podcast, and this has been a special episode of the Grindhouse Diner from Hell. Hope you guys had a good time. Hopefully we'll be talking to you next Friday on the next film, back to our old show. And hope you guys are staying safe out there. Make sure you try to stay inside if you're not an essential employee. But if you are an essential employee, check us out this Friday, and or every Friday on your way to work. And of course, stay safe out there, and thank you for all that you do for us. And hopefully we'll be getting back together soon and be able to speak and do our episodes that way. Well, guys, it's been great. Have a good night. See ya.